Okay, we are ready to get started. That feels really loud. Okay, welcome to the June Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Thank you for joining us today. I am not Taylor Fudge, I'm Sarah Jordan, so I'm acting as the chair today. As usual, we have a pretty full agenda and everybody wants to get out of here early, so we're going to work through this quickly and efficiently. Please limit your individual conversations during the meeting to ensure commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you're called upon, and when you speak at the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Before the commission votes on each item, I'll ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located in PrimeGov. If you're following along, select Agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see the items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission, so if you brought any materials with you, please keep them at your seat as we cannot review them. Keith, would you please call roll?
Jordan.
Present.
Gaines.
Present.
Hoare.
Present.
Whitley.
Present.
Wood.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda, and for the sake of time, we ask anyone who is unfamiliar with the process to please refer to the procedures section. There's 2 items we'd like to note specifically regarding the meeting process. These involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Regarding certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the certificate of appropriateness has been issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, any news from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer?
The only thing I wanted to note is that our July meeting will be at 3:30 instead of 2 o'clock. Holiday schedule changes due to the 4th of July holiday. So if you regularly attend, just make note of that. That will be on the meeting agenda when that gets posted. Then I also want to welcome our newest member that was just recently appointed by the Mayor and Council. Gary Wood joins us as a resident of Crown Heights and as fills our attorney spot for the commission. So welcome, Gary.
All right, welcome. Do we need to move anything today, Katie?
We don't have any items that need to be moved around on the agenda, no.
Okay. Acceptance of the minutes. Have commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the May meeting?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Can everybody please vote in PrimeGov? Okay, so moved. Katie, anything from code enforcement?
Nothing specific to report. As always, reach out to staff if you have questions about any specific items that are noted in that report.
Okay, any continuance announcements or requests?
We have no continuance requests on the agenda and no new requests at this time.
All right, moving on to public hearings. Any dilapidated structures?
We have no dilapidated structures this month and no National Register nominations this month. We do have 1 item on the consent docket.
Okay, if everybody has had a chance to review the consent docket, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, if you can all vote on the consent docket in PrimeGov.
Maybe.
The suspense is killing me. Oh, yay.
Gaines.
Yes.
Hoare.
Yes.
Whitley.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Okay. So if you were on the consent docket, congratulations, your project is approved, and you may stick around and listen to the remainder of this meeting, or you're free to head out. Moving on to cases for individual consideration. Is mine the only screen that's kind of? Might give us a second. Thank you. Okay, HPCA 22-00161 at 2412 North Robinson Avenue.
This is located in Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Random Vaughn Danks Wellness Emporium for Casey Kaiser, Uptown Robinson LLC, for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, add roof-mounted sign required. This is, as noted by required, this is an item that has already been completed, but must be reviewed as if it had not. So currently they have a notice of violation that's kind of on hold as they work through this application process. This has been before the commission a couple of times, and at this time, having not received any proposals to revise the application, we have recommended a denial with prejudice. What is proposed is a roof-mounted sign that does not meet applicable guidelines and regulations for both the sign material and the sign location. If denied, the applicant could return to the commission with a new application for a different proposal.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Looks like the applicant is present, so would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Commission. My name is Jocelyn West, and I am here on behalf of Danks Wellness Emporium. I would like to respectfully propose an approval under the unique circumstances for the usage of our storefront sign. Our establishment is located in close proximity to the corner of Robinson and 23rd Street, which straddles the border of the Jefferson Park Historical District. While zoning maps readily available on the Historical District website indicate an equal division of the parcels between 23rd Street and 24th Street, our store is uniquely situated on the border of the Jefferson Park Historical District. The distance between Robinson Avenue, between 23rd Street and 24th Street, is approximately 365 feet, and our store is positioned at approximately 182 feet, essentially at the midpoint from both directions. Now, to create our store signs and assist with obtaining the necessary permits, we engaged the services of Blue Diamond Signs. Their work was previously approved by the relevant authorities and is in compliance with the City of Oklahoma City sign ordinance. As commercial business operating in the C4 zoning, our activities align with the designated purposes of the area. Now, during our discussions with the Assistant Planner, Daryl Calloway of OKC Planning Department in Current Planning and Urban Designs, he shared the zoning maps regarding the historical districts and information pertaining to our application via email on March 12, 2023. However, the specifications provided in his zoning research were intended for the adjacent property located at 2410 North Robinson, rather than our precise location at 2412 North Robinson. The question regarding the appropriateness of our location being considered a part of the historical district has been previously raised, highlighting the unique circumstances surrounding our establishment. The fact that the district's border intersects our store emphasizes the need for careful examination and consideration of our specific situation. Now, adjacent to our store to the left stands the renowned Blue Note Lounge, a historic establishment that opened its doors first in 1961, specifically catering to the travelers of Route 66. Now, the Blue Note Lounge signage, which is quite similar to ours in size, quite similar to ours in terms of display location, being on the roof of the same building, their sign is visibly larger in size and scale. Furthermore, their sign has recently undergone refurbishment, making it more vibrant. On the right side of our store, we have the prominent Uptown neon sign hanging from the roof attached to the chimney. Our sign seamlessly blends in with the architectural style of the surrounding buildings, both within and outside of the historical district. Now, throughout our operations in the area, we have observed the unfortunate closure of several businesses in the vicinity over the past couple years, leaving desolate and abandoned buildings in the area. Now, in stark contrast, Dake's Wonder Emporium has sustained its presence despite the challenging circumstances. We strongly believe in the significance of preserving the area and attracting customers not only for our business, but also for the benefit of our neighboring establishments as well. It is crucial for our store to align with the aesthetic of the area in order to maintain and drive sustaining business activity along 23rd Street. Now, given these circumstances, we respectfully request your consideration for approval for the usage of our storefront sign. We firmly believe that our sign's design harmoniously aligns with the architectural aesthetics of the surrounding area, ensuring visually a cohesive streetscape. Our sign usage had previously received approval from the relevant authorities until we were informed of the overlay of the historical district. Our goal is to be in full compliance with the Historical Preservation Committee and conduct ourselves professionally for the benefit of all. Hence, we believe our request is both reasonable and straightforward, aiming to maintain the use of our storefront sign due to its unique location. We fully comprehend the significance of upholding the Historical District's guidelines while fostering business development and contributing to the area's vitality. Our proposed sign usage aligns with this goal, as demonstrated with respect for the historical significance of the district while simultaneously enhancing the visibility and identity of our establishment, which seamlessly integrates with the presence of our neighbors and businesses as well. Again, we humbly ask for this exception due to our unique circumstances of our store's location, and as that is at the discretion of this honorable committee. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. You were certainly prepared, and we love that. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns for the applicant?
So I'm looking at the map. It looks like the HP district ends at 2412. Is that right? So like Blue Note is actually not in the HP boundary. It's in the urban design.
Right. Yeah, Blue Note is just outside the HB district, or
But
HL district.
That would be the explanation of why that one is allowed to have that signage versus the other. Is the signage right there, the vertical signage for Toast and Coffee, is that one in compliance? Is that?
That one did receive a CA, and that one, this one is specifically considered a roof-mounted sign, which the guidelines don't support. That is, what are those called? That's a blade sign. So that one did go through the approval process and get a CA, as well as the Uptown one that's on the chimney.
You said
And I
that-
did want to note that from what I can see, this has not received a sign permit. It is in queue for a sign permit that was filed back in 2021, actually.
Yeah, so from my perspective, it needs to be in compliance with the signs that are within the boundary of the Historic Preservation
Okay.
District.
Okay.
That's my thoughts.
Do you have any idea why the application hasn't been processed if it was filed in 2021?
They can't get a sign permit until they have a CA, and they don't have a CA. So they applied for the sign permit, and then it got flagged as being in a historic district.
But in 2021?
Yeah, and it has not
Been
proceeded
ongoing
since
for a
that time. Yeah.
I think this is, I know it's the third pass, but I think it's like the fifth or sixth month.
We've been working this application for nearly a year at this point, so.
It's a little,
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you made a very valid argument that it's in a commercial district and right on the boundary, and I definitely understand, especially kind of, to the naked eye, somebody who's uninformed passing down the street about what this property is and what that, where that would lie with regard to 23rd Street or Jefferson Park. Certainly understand all of that. The guidelines are really clear on signs, so while my personal opinion may, differ a little bit, I struggle to find a way to kind of give it a pass and move it on. Commissioner Gaines, did you have anything else you wanted to add or contribute, anybody?
I think
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with both you and Commissioner Poore. It's not even just that it's roof mounted, but also the materials are inappropriate as well. So while, personally, I don't mind it as much, just the guidelines specifically are pretty clear about what we can and can't install there, unfortunately.
Katie, can you explain the difference? We talk about the materials being inappropriate. Dank sign is a flat sign, not a neon sign. TNC is a flat sign that's lit up from the back. Dank's lit up from the back.
My
Does-
understanding is that it requires it to be metal or wood, and this doesn't appear to be either.
which the other one isn't either. It's,
I would need to pull back up the approvals for the toast and coffee sign to look at what those materials were indicated to be, and if that's consistent with what was approved, or if we had some unique circumstance that justified that product.
Okay, I'm just curious because
yeah.
those, right or wrong, they look similar, being flat signs that are illuminated from the back, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm just looking at bullet point 3.10.3 where it says signs placed on the exterior of buildings must be constructed of painted wood or metal.
From my understanding, it is a metal sign.
But it's
Our
okay.
aim was to mimic the structures and the signs around it to kind of mirror the design for all of the buildings on that area.
And Katie, I've got written down vinyl. Did I just misread that? Is it painted metal?
From my understanding, I believe.
Yeah, for some reason I thought it was like a composite or
Yeah, I believe, and I'm looking at the documents that are attached. My understanding was that it was not a metal product, that it was some sort of a,
Well, let's definitely try to
Vinyl
get
poly.
clarity on that, since that is, kind of half of the issue in
That's in
this
question.
application. I also just wanted to, part of this is for you and part of this is for staff, but the building to the south of yours with the like banner flags out front, is that part of Danks or is that a separate?
No, that is a
Okay, and
separate.
does HP, is it under our purview to review those like flag signs, or are those considered impermanent?
I think that is outside the district, but I think those are likely not allowed either, but we need to look at those and what the actual address is for that
Okay.
business.
Was there a way to get clarity on the material, since, that's kind of a big piece of this?
And for it should say it in the staff report, and I was not immediately finding it.
I think it says vinyl in the staff report, or I could have pulled that from,
It may be on
the
original.
previous hearing, month before last.
It has been described to us as synthetic polycarbonate and vinyl attached to an aluminum frame.
Okay.
So I think there may be a unique circumstance for something along the lines of the Blue Note sign that is, I don't know the age of that sign, but it's been there for a long time.
A
and,
long time.
But I think the materials are important.
Okay.
And I think that's, the materials of that sign are very distinctive and give it a very kind of a historic feel.
So we,
Okay.
the commission could look at something that, give a unique circumstance for a roof-mounted sign if we could get to an appropriate material? Okay, I would feel very comfortable with that. How do you think that would feel?
I would be agreeable to that.
Okay, so would that be a denial with prejudice, or, we can't really come to any sort of approve with agreed-upon conditions without having a design, so.
Right. I think to deny with prejudice, and then they can come back and reapply as soon as you're ready for a different sign, a different material.
Okay.
And if you're unfamiliar with the process, just a denial with prejudice means you can't come back with the exact same proposal. You can
Okay.
come back next month with something entirely different.
Okay,
You
perfect.
just can't come back and bring us this sign.
No problem. Yeah, no, I
Okay,
appreciate it.
commission members, anybody have a motion?
Well, I do have a question.
Oh, yes,
And
go
the
ahead, I'm
public.
It
sorry.
doesn't seem like
And we need to ask the public.
materials are the only problem here. The location is also noted as a problem. And me looking at the picture,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see where they can put a sign anywhere else other than what they have here.
Yeah,
Unlike TNC that had an option to put it out up on that part, I don't see another option here. And they say it detracts from the main architectural characteristics of the historic structure. I understand Blue Note, if they were wanting to put it on a gable such as Blue Note was, I would think that would be the case. But what are we, since we're giving advice on on the materials, what about location that has been deemed inappropriate here? Because I don't see another option for them on that.
I think what we were just, that last little bit was stating that we could review something on the roof if we could get to an agreeable material.
Okay, I didn't, all right.
That's the way I took it,
Yep,
so somebody
that would
jump
be
in
the
and tell me
unique
if I was wrong.
circumstance in that instance.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm not particularly offended by where it is. I'm way more offended by those flags next to it. But,
Exactly.
but yeah, I think that feels like a happy medium to me.
Yeah.
Any members of the public wish to speak to this? No? Any commission member want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny HPCA 22-00161 with prejudice.
Seconded.
Okay, we will attempt to vote in Prime Gov. We'll see. Okay. Okay, motion is passed, so just when you're ready to come back with the new proposal, you'll work with staff and get that moving along again.
Thank you, Commissioners.
See you next time. Okay, HPCA 23-00043 at 800 Northwest 19th Street in Mesta Park.
This is located in Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Brent Wall, Laud Studio, for Matthew Vaughn for certificate of appropriateness to 8, alter front yard to acquire landscape beds where lawn has historically existed, elective. 9, install flagstone pathways around front and sides of the house, elective. This is an application that was heard by the commission previously. A number of items were already approved, and the remaining items are the installation of the landscape beds in the front and side yard and installation of pathways around the front and side of the house. The pathways have been revised to be proposed as brick and set into sand, not permanently attached to the site. Because this feature is minimally visible, could easily be removed in the future with minimal impact, staff has recommended approval of that item. Item 9, the removal of the established lawn material and installation of landscape beds appears to have a more significant impact on both the visual character and potentially the structural integrity of the yard. Removing the grass and the root systems can cause the slope of the yard to erode over time, creating ongoing maintenance issues, resulting in further changes to the condition, character of the site. The guidelines don't support alteration to the topography of the site through extensive grading or alteration to the rolled terrace. And for these reasons, staff has recommended a continuance of this item, and we continue to feel that there may be less impactful ways to introduce new landscape features at this site without such an extensive removal of the existing landscape material. One other just specific item to note that's proposed that was discussed last time and is still part of the application is using a metal edging at the sidewalk to hold the proposed landscape material. And that is another kind of particular concern that came up with staff and the commission, that that's not typically something we see in a residential yard abutting the edge of the sidewalk. So we did recommend continuance on item 8.
Okay, looks like the applicants are present, so would you please state your names and address for the record?
My name is Megan Phelan, and I'm here from Laud Studio, 220 Northwest 13th Street.
Okay, also known as Miss Megan Brent per the packet. Okay, so commissioners, we have obviously heard this one pretty recently. Any questions, concerns, items you'd like to address with regard to staff's concerns?
I actually have a question for Katie. There are a couple of houses that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't know if they're in Mesta or Heritage Hills, but that have like kind of desert scapes in the front yard. That they're still like fairly sloped, but it's like gravel and just all cacti and other kind of desert plants. Was that something that had to go through HP as well?
So I think those are probably ones that, because there was no other work requiring review, requiring a permit, they didn't come to HP. They likely should have, looking at it in the context of this type of a project, and in the context of, completely removing the sod from the yard and the potential impact that has on the topography. This has been kind of an evolving form of work that we're seeing more and more in the districts. For a long time, we said we don't really review landscaping because it was just what people plant in a flower bed, and we weren't concerned about that. But we are seeing more dramatic transformations of people's yards where all of the sod is taken out, very different material is put back in. Obviously, it looks very different just from an aesthetic impact, and then the physical ramifications of that are also something that we need to be considering. So,
Okay. Yeah, I know it's one of those things that, well, they did it, so we can do it, but I just want to make sure that wasn't something we had approved and then we're not approving this time. So just clarifying.
Yeah, I kind of struggle with, the excavation and regrading is a different component, I guess, but I just kind of struggle with reviewing somebody's landscaping in general. Whether it's what I want to do in my lawn or not, just kind of like organic growth, I struggle to want to control that for you. I have a question about the metal edging, and I brought this up to Brent last month, but just like safety concerns about kids riding on the sidewalk and kind of like falling out right there onto it. That's the only like red flag that I'm seeing on this.
Yep. And I appreciate that concern. I think the metal edging that we use has kind of a rounded edge to it, so it's really not sharp. If you think about like edging you can get from Lowe's or something, that's very sharp.
Yeah.
This is a little bit thicker, it's rounded edge. You wouldn't cut your finger or anything running your hand along the top. We can also go to composite edging, which is a wood and plastic combination. It would be a lot less, concerning, I guess, if that's a concern of a kid falling on it. It's just softer and kind of, wouldn't cut them or anything.
Yeah, since it's just, in that public right of way, it's kind of the first thing that I think of. The composite edging, is that as strong as this metal edging, since we're talking about, a little bit of regrading and holding back this slope?
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned. They'll have as many stakes as needed to keep that in place. And really, I think in our renderings, we kind of had this like perfect like
It was a magic
curve.
drop off.
Yeah, magic.
Yes.
In reality, the slope really does come, to the edge of the sidewalk in a way that if, when it's planted, it's not going to hang over magically like that. So
You're kidding.
So the edging really, I think, would prevent, like if there was a big rainstorm and some mulch washed down, I think it would be more about preventing that from washing out onto the sidewalk as opposed to holding up the whole slope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we talked about it last time, but we had asked if this did go through, is there some kind of landscape fabric or something that could be incorporated to ensure that the grading and the topography stays as it is and there is no washing out? Because obviously that's what the turf is doing right now. Personally, like ripping out the turf doesn't bother me because it's a huge use of water and resources, and moving to something that's more drought tolerant and native, I think is always positive. But I am concerned about possible washout of the topography. So do you guys have a product in mind or something?
Yes, and I actually did want to make a note about what's actually there on the slope. And I do, looking at these images, I think it's a little misleading about how steep that slope is. We did some rough calculations, and like the northwest slope is a 43% slope, so it's very steep. The southeast is 40%, and the northeast is like a 33% slope. So it's pretty steep, and for them to even mow it, it's pretty dangerous. He's sprained an ankle, like literally sprained an ankle mowing on that slope. And
Sorry, that's not funny, but
yeah. And they've had landscaping companies give them quotes for like $80 or $90 a week just for mowing that slope because it's, dangerous. And so Actually, there's not that much turf that's growing on the slope. There's a lot of bare holes. It's mostly weeds, just green weeds, which is nice, I guess. But, you know, so I think we had said like 3 inches removal to get the planting bed in. I think it would probably be even less than that, given that there's not actually any Bermuda in there. You know, Bermuda has a root system of 4 to 6 inches, which is why we need to go down that deep. But this stuff is like maybe an inch to remove what's there. So there would be really minimal disruption to the topsoil. And then in terms of that erosion, you know, there's several different types of landscape fabric. I think in the amended application, we have just like a typical landscape fabric that, you know, they cut holes through and plant the plants, leaving enough room for oxygen and water to get into the soil for good root system production. And then they pin that into the slope. So it really does a really good job of keeping the soil in while the plants get established.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Caitlin. I have a hard time saying that we need to keep Bermuda grass because historically it's been Bermuda grass. I don't know. I mean, yeah, from that picture, it doesn't look like it's super lush and green. And from the imagery that they've provided, using native plants, I think would be a far better solution. So I'm not offended by the proposal.
I'm not either. I know that, you know, there is potential for washout, or, you know, there's always an issue with regrading a slope, but I just don't like the thought process behind monitoring somebody's plantings. So for me, I am on board with an approval here.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion.
Anybody from the public?
Yes, any members of the public wish to speak to this? Or any other additional questions, comments from anybody up here?
Because that's what they've got there.
No? Okay, motion away.
That'd be fine.
I move to approve HBCA 23-00043, items number 8 and 9.
Okay, do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay.
Just before we vote, is that with the findings in the staff report? Are there any additional findings you want to add for item 8, where the recommendation was not to approve? Not to put you on the spot, but
Right now.
Well, I mean, can I approve it if I don't agree with the findings that staff has recommended?
You have
yeah,
to have your
yeah.
own
It's just if you had
findings.
other findings you wanted to incorporate, or just with the generic meets applicable guide, yeah, okay.
So that would be with the metal edging? Because I won't vote for it with the metal edging.
Well, then that would be an agreed upon condition. And so you can ask them right now if they will commit to providing documentation to staff about a different type of edging. Is that how that would work? Right. So if they can, you know, agree to submit that material to staff.
I personally wouldn't, I think it should be concrete. I don't think it should be composite edging either, because those composite edging stakes that hold those in are metal, and I mean, have little sharp edges on them and stuff. I mean, my thing is, I think you pointed out that it looks like the yard next door has some concrete through there, so I think only way I would be comfortable with the edging is if it was concrete.
Megan, do you want to speak to the stakes?
They're not metal.
They're
They're not metal. They're made of the same composite material, and then they're screwed in to
Okay.
the actual edging.
Thoughts there?
What's the composite material that you're proposing?
Like what brand?
No,
it's-
what is the material
It's
itself?
a mix of like wood pulp and plastic, so it's very bendable. It's colored in, it like looks like wood, but it's actually a mix of wood and plastic.
Nobody is more careful than Brent Wall, so I would trust him
Yeah.
to, he's even more of a nervous parent than I am, so I would trust him to come up with something super safe if we feel that that's an issue. As far as concrete, I know that that's not something staff would love to recommend, because that's a significant change and essentially a retaining wall. So I agree wholeheartedly about the metal edging. It scares me a little bit, but the composite does not worry me so much.
I don't know if it's concrete or if it's like
railroad tie.
I don't want my own kids to be around the middle edging. So, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with the composite.
Okay,
I think that was more of just an off-the-cuff suggestion at the last meeting and wasn't something that
Yeah.
was.
you're not
set in
attached
stone.
to it.
Nope, not married to it at all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you please state your names for the record too?
I'm Kaylee Vaughn, and I reside at 800 Northwest 19th.
Thank you.
And I'm Matthew Vaughn. I reside there as well with her.
Thank you.
Yes. And a few other folks.
Okay, good deal.
So we approve with conditions?
I am in favor of approving with an agreed upon condition to use rounded composite edging, personally. I just can't make that motion.
I've already made the motion.
Okay. Do you want to state the agreed upon condition?
Yeah, with the condition that the composite materials used for the edging.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Seconded.
Do we have a second? Okay. Thank you. Everybody please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, the motion has passed. So congratulations, and you'll just work with staff to show them that composite and get that all tidied up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day.
Okay, so moving on to HPCA 23-00044 at 621 Northwest 18th Street in Mesta Park.
This is in Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks Magnus, Creative Home Design, for David DeWitt for certificate of appropriateness to 4, demolish first floor addition elective, 5, construct 3-story addition elective, 11, demolish north chimney elective, and 12, remove side door awning elective. The commission has seen an application for this property previously and approved several items. The addition was not presented previously, so that's back before you today. This includes replacement of the first floor addition with a new addition and removal of the chimney and awning kind of related to all of that. Staff supports the removal of the first floor addition or the enclosed porch, the awning and chimney due to their minimal visibility, contingent upon submittal of more thorough documentation of the existing features just for the purpose of maintaining a record of the property and having photographs to go in the file, and approval and contingent upon approval of the addition. We don't want to approve removal of a portion of the house without having approval of what's going back in its place. The proposed addition includes the build-out of attic space and is essentially 3 stories tall. It matches the height of the historic structure instead of what we often see additions that kind of have a step down from the historic roof form. It is 710 square feet and does meet relevant guidelines for size and materials. Staff is concerned about design and proportions that may not be compatible with a historic structure. Alteration to the roof form of the proposed addition in particular might provide a more compatible form. In addition to that, staff did note that sorry, I lost my place in my notes that I made for myself, but that's, so we did recommend a continuance for the proposed addition.
Okay, would the applicant please state their name and address for the record?
Fallon Brooks Magnus, representing the applicant, 733 Northwest 22nd Street. I'm fine with all that. The only thing that I really had an issue with was, so my understanding is from reading the staff report that we cannot go ahead and remove the chimney until we have an addition approved. Is that correct?
I believe it was just the demo of the
Is
addition.
it just the demo of the addition?
I think we kind of grouped all of those together, but I think the actual recommendation in the staff report just was specifically tied to the addition and not going forward with the demolition of the existing addition before you build the new addition.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the other items could be approved today.
Yeah, I think the only real issue that was noted was kind of the massing and proportion of the north-south roof line on that 3rd story, dormer.
They wanted a window to look out the back, and I had originally advised them that I didn't think that was going to work.
Okay.
But, so, you know,
So it sounds like you're open to
Yeah.
working towards a change on that one?
yeah, we can get that fixed.
Okay. Commissioners, any additional questions?
So we would continue that either to July 5th or to August 2nd.
July 5th. Let's do it.
I just wanted to bring one thing to your attention. I noticed in the staff report, it says photo documentation should be photo documentation should be provided, and that's under a specific finding. It's really an agreed upon condition with you that you'll provide them the right documentation before you move forward with demo.
Yeah, I'll go take photos.
Okay, anyone from the public wish to speak to this? No? Okay, commissioners, anybody like to motion these items?
Nobody? Come on.
So you said the July 5th meeting is what you wanted to continue the.
I think we're just talking about continuing.
On item 5.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'll make a motion for items 4, 11, and 12 on HPCA 23-00044 with the specific findings and conditions listed in the staff
I
report.
don't think we can approve item 4
No.
because it states you specifically can't approve it until an addition is approved. So it'd have to be just an approval of items 11 and 12.
Did I read that wrong? Hold on.
It's okay. We'll just start over.
Okay. Yep. So same HPCA 23-00044 for item 11 and 12 for approval with the specific findings and conditions.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. If everybody will vote on that in PrimeGov.
And as you're voting, you do actually have a recommendation to approve item 4 in your staff report with the condition that it not proceed without approval of the new construction.
Okay,
So I
that's
think
what
you could do that either way.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. I would go back to my original motion.
So you could just motion separately to approve item 4 if you want to do it that way.
Okay.
Okay, that's passed. So moving on to item 4.
So I will make a motion to approve item 4 with the specific conditions and findings listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay. Has everyone voted?
Gaines, what's your vote on that one, please?
Yes.
Okay, so that has passed. Last one.
I make a motion to continue item 11 to the July 5th meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Was it, continuing
Hang on, no. That's, you said
Oh.
item 11?
So sorry.
I thought item 11 was.
Yeah.
Oh, it's item 5.
It's item 5.
Okay, 11 and 12 are approved, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's
11,
what-
12, and 4 were approved. I make a motion to continue item 5, thank you, to the July 5th meeting.
Okay, that has passed as well. Okay, we will see you here right now, I think. Are you up next?
Yeah.
Is that you? Okay. All right, moving on to HPCA 23-00045 at 2603 North Dewey Avenue in Paseo.
So this is a consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks Magnus Creative Home Design for Nathan Vaughn, HK Homes, for certificate of appropriateness to 2, add new 10-foot driveway off 25th Street elective, 3, construct new duplex with attached garage on proposed first parcel elective, and 4, add new fence elective. The commission previously approved a lot split for this property. It's kind of an oddly configured site in Paseo, and continued an application to construct a duplex on the corner of the property. The applicant has come back with some pretty significant revisions to the design of what was initially proposed in response to the commission's comments. These include changes to building materials, to the roof form, and staff feels like this has made the proposal much more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood context. Remaining concerns are limited to windows that are proposed appear to be just straight vinyl, which the guidelines don't support. So we would just ask that that window material be revised. That's something that could certainly be submitted to staff. We had a concern or just called attention to the detailing of the brick and the siding. Typically on a historic structure, the lap siding comes down and overlaps the brick, lets the water go down the wall and not sit on the brick. When we look at historic structures that have a combination of brick and siding, that may be something that's just a modern detail that is not of concern, but we just called that out. The roof material proposed in some locations on the structure, not the entire building, is a standing seam metal roof. The guidelines say that we shouldn't use this kind of product unless there's documentation that it was used at the site historically. That also applies to new construction. We don't have documentation of a structure ever having been here before, so there's obviously no historic precedent for the metal roof. Again, that's kind of a modern design feature. The commission may feel like that's a step toward differentiation, but it's something that the guidelines don't appear to be supportive of. Then the other main concern was with the parking area that's part of the driveway. And you may have some thoughts on that. Right now there's a very large paved area proposed in front of the driveway to accommodate 4 parking spaces, which is the parking requirement for a duplex under zoning. Staff would really like to see the applicant work toward some other options for parking, whether that's a variance to allow the garage to count as 2 parking spaces, stacking the cars in the driveway, going to a driveway width that matches the width of the garage doors so that you can fit more in that space, but something to minimize the amount of paving that's taking up the backyard. A fence is proposed that would screen that parking, but in order to do that, the fence comes forward of the front porch of the houses on 25th Street, which is also not something that we would support. So we did recommend approval with conditions that those issues with the parking and the fence be, and with some of the building materials be worked through at the commission's direction with staff, but you all may feel like that's too many things to work through. They seem pretty clear cut as far as what needs to be done, but that's what our recommendation was.
Okay, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Fallon Brooks Magnus, representing the applicant, 733 Northwest 22nd Street.
Okay.
You know, our main concern here obviously is getting the building out of the ground, so I'm fine with switching the roof materials and everything that you mentioned there, windows. The parking is difficult. I've tried a lot of different configurations. We tried with a driveway off of Dewey that hid the entire parking behind. You know, that's a lot of concrete. It was more concrete than this was. It made our lot coverage pretty high. This one, we kind of just modeled what's across the street to the south, on the southwest corner of 25th and Dewey. There's a house that has parking in the rear, and their fence goes all the way to the sidewalk. We are not going all the way to the sidewalk, obviously, because we have this massive, steep rolling terrace. So we are 18 feet from the property line, and the setback on the side there, because that's technically the side of that lot, is 10 feet per the base zoning district. So, you know, we're behind that. We are forward of the neighboring houses, but we needed 24 feet between the face of the garage and the fence for maneuverability and parking. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place here. Like, we don't really have another option besides making the garage a 4-car tandem and hiding all the cars inside of a garage. Like, we just don't have another option.
Be quite a sight.
Do what?
It'd be quite a sight.
Yeah.
Can you tell me really fast, in your packet, in your application, is there anything about the parking elsewhere other than on the second page where you have your overall site plan?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Now, Katie, will we need to get a variance to count the garage as parking spaces?
So my understanding is that you would, because it says 2 per dwelling unit plus garage, which has been interpreted to mean the garage doesn't count. And that's, we see that in a lot of SPUD applications to include that the garage does count as part of the rezoning. So, you know, that would be one way to cut it down to just 2 paved parking places, and 2 people get to park in the garage and 2 people get to park not uncovered.
So, I mean, we would be amenable to that, but, you know, the last time we were here, we had a couple of neighbors that were pretty upset that we're removing parking as it is on that stretch of street, you know, just by putting 2 driveways in. So, and we don't really want to eliminate parking. We're just unsure how to configure it. I would say, you know, if we can walk away with approval on the main building, then we can come back for garage and parking and see if we can come up with some alternatives. Maybe we don't do garage at all, I don't know. But I just don't see another path forward with the current configuration of a garage and paving. I mean, we are going to need to go ahead and cut a driveway to get access to the site to start construction. But we're willing to come back for the parking and garage and fence and all of that.
Well, let's start with what's presented and see if anybody's got questions or concerns, because honestly, I don't love the idea of approving construction of a duplex without knowing how people are going to park to live there. So let's just start with what's being presented from there. Commissioners, any questions, concerns about any of it, but maybe specifically the parking?
I have a question real quick. Fallon, so parcel 1 is where this current duplex is going?
Mm-hmm.
And then on that one map, parcel 2, it says possible future.
Oh, and there's actually already an application in for it. We weren't able to get on the docket today because we had some materials missing. But yeah, there's a house going there.
2 houses.
On the second lot is 1 house, and on the other one is a duplex. So 2 structures, yeah. Which is allowable in the base zoning, as long as we split the lot, which you guys have already approved.
Yeah.
Katie, did staff, you know, hearing Fallon's concerns about not really knowing another way to get the appropriate amount of parking on the site, I mean, did staff have a specific idea beyond the garage, you know, getting a variance for the garage to count as parking?
Well, my understanding, and you may have had a different experience with this, Fallon, but my understanding is that you can park cars tandem on like the driveway. So if you had a driveway that was the width of the garage opening, you could park 2 and 2 and not have to be
Behind the fence. That's why we had the 24-foot deep. So in the past, that's what we've done. We'll have you know, if we do a duplex with a shared garage like this, which is not a common condition, but we've done it to where, you know, each unit parks on a side. I'm so sorry, I talk with my hands, it's the worst. If each unit parks on one side, then they park basically, you know, 1 unit is the left side, and they can park in the garage and then behind it also, and then same thing on the opposite side. You know, that's how we've worked it out in the past.
So that was kind of what I had thought might work, whether that was 4 spaces on the driveway, 2 by 2, or 2 in the garage, 2 on the driveway.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I have it configured. But we need that 24 feet, which is pretty typical, from the face of the garage to the fence for maneuverability. And so that's why, I mean, we're pretty much kind of designed into a corner with it. I don't think that there's any way to alter that. And the footprint of the garage is actually smaller too.
Are you talking about the depth and you were talking about the width?
Yeah.
Or am I misunderstanding this? Because I think Katie's concern is the width extending the garage, right?
Right, but
And
what
you're
we have
talking
on the
about-
site plan shows the paving coming out
Beyond
significantly
the-
wider than the garage itself.
So the 24 feet for
But behind the
maneuverability.
fence line, it's only up to the fence line. On the other side of the fence line, we have a single
Right,
driveway,
right.
and that's all that's visible from the street.
But you were saying you could double the width of the driveway, Katie?
Yeah.
And then,
Okay,
and so, I mean, I don't love giant curb cuts,
I don't either.
but it does seem like in the solution, it may be the better option to double it and then double stack your cars. Somebody may be parked on the slope and they may not be behind the fence.
Is the fence largely intended to screen
Yes,
the paving?
yeah.
I mean, I will
Or
say
is
it's
it
more
for
visible.
security of the cars?
And, well, kind of both, but really for screening, I mean, it's, if you look at the house that's on the opposite side, theirs goes all the way to the sidewalk, and they have a similar condition, they just don't have the terrace. You know, ours would sit basically up at the top of the terrace, but push back a little.
I mean, I probably prefer what you proposed over a giant curb cut.
Same, because that
especially
also
up on
eliminates
that
another
slope.
street parking space as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if it's, yeah, that's true. We would, with a double curb cut, you would be eliminating one on-site street parking. But also just like up on that slope with a fence, I don't know how much of the concrete we're gonna see. I mean, everybody here knows I'm not a fan of a lot of concrete, but I think in this situation, I would be more inclined to approve what you have versus a double curb cut.
I guess I just don't see how physically this provides 4 parking spaces, what's proposed. How do you maneuver
There's
4 spaces?
2 of them are in the garage, and that's, so
So are
I
you
did
back
not realize.
to needing a variance then?
I am gonna have to have a variance anyway, yeah.
So
Okay.
can we approve it if you don't have the variance? How does that work, Katie?
So we would have to make a recommendation on the variance.
Okay.
So I think we would need to continue the driveway. And that would give us some time to really pin down exactly what we can do to get everybody in a good place with this and come back with the driveway and with the recommendation on a variance for the parking.
So if you're parking in the garage and you do get the variance, the width, the 31.5 feet of the concrete behind the fence does not really need to be that long, that wide. You can narrow it to just the width of the,
Width-wise,
garage.
yes. Depth-wise, 24 feet is what we
Right.
need, but width-wise,
so you could reduce that
Yeah.
paving a little
I
bit.
mean, we kind of, the reason that we made it wider than the garage was really to kind of make it to where, you know, if you've got 2 cars parked in the garage and 2 parked out in that driveway, I mean, they're right there. And, you know, if you have them off to the side and this person backs out of their garage, they're not having to maneuver around a car to the driveway, which is centered. So that's why the width was also to kind of get the cars kind of out of the way of each other as well, to make it more maneuverable. Because honestly, like, I think that the condition as it's designed is not ideal, and I think the less concrete that we have, the more of a nightmare it's going to be to maneuver. I wouldn't want to have to park my car there.
I would almost think like removing the edge and adding a little bit of a radius from the drive into the pad would be more functional than
Certainly sounds more functional. Yeah.
having it try to like veer, I don't know how you
Yeah.
shift a car to the side very easily.
So like a 45 degree instead of a
Yeah,
90
I
degree.
tried a few different things, so I mean, we can always go back to the drawing board on the driveway.
Anybody from the public wish to speak to this? It kind of sounds like we're all at a consensus as to what needs, some further input and review and what is approvable with agreed upon conditions and further direction from staff.
So are we wanting to try to push forward with some of these items without knowing the driveway? Can we do that? Or do we want to?
I think we can, Katie.
I mean, item 2, add a new 10-foot driveway off 25th Street. We won't want to approve that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just item 2 that we would not, I don't know how that works with on item 3, since they do have the detached garage, as a part of item 3, and you're saying they might need a variance for that. How would that impact our motion?
Well, they don't need a variance to build the garage.
Right.
They need a variance for the garage to count as their parking. So we can approve the garage.
Okay.
I
if
think
you don't
you
get the
would
variance,
want
they'll be
to,
back.
you would want to continue the fence.
Yeah, that's
Because
what I was
that's
thinking.
related to the paving in the driveway.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
But if you have a structure and you have to have so many parking spaces, and she has to have the variance to get those parking spaces, how do you approve the garage?
Well, they can build a garage, it just doesn't count as their parking. They're required to have a minimum of 4 parking spaces. And the way the code is interpreted, a garage does not count as a parking space because the code assumes that your garage is full of your stuff, is how it has been explained to
So
me.
you approve a garage, and then you have a duplex that's proposed, but you're down 2 parking spots, and this lot's too small really for this proposal anyway,
They
so.
strong arm you into a solution for parking.
Well, the other thing is, she doesn't have to
And
build
the
a
other-
garage just because we
Yeah.
approve her building a garage. So if she goes and she doesn't get the variance, she's gonna have to come back with some other proposed parking situation, which
Sure.
you've indicated that you're open to doing, so.
Worst case scenario would be that we just don't build a garage and we
Right.
put 4 parking spaces across the
So
rear.
us providing you, the
Yeah.
ability to go seek out a variance, I think is
Yeah.
kind of what we're after here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
What
I mean,
is-
and we're not gonna, I mean, we really are, we would like to move forward on the main structure and the driveway so that we have site access, because we don't currently have access to the site with a vehicle. So those would be the 2 things that we're mostly concerned with. And, we can reconfigure parking and look at garage versus no garage and all of that. Like, we're not gonna pave that immediately.
So when would you want to continue to? By 5th or?
July 5th on this one, yeah.
And
I
just-
can have it done.
To make sure we're all speaking the same language, she's saying she needs a driveway today, but we're talking about having to separate out the driveway and the parking in this motion. Correct? Because if you need a driveway and we're comfortable with, at a very minimum, we're comfortable with a, traditional 10-foot wide curb cut, is that what we're approving today? And up to where?
I would say to the property line, which is what we show. I mean, that's where the single width drive stops, is at the property line. And then there's a detail in there too for the retaining wall for it and everything.
Because I think as it stands, if we approve that without clarifying, we're approving, the concrete as it is in this application, correct?
Yes, the other thing that I am thinking is that even if we approve the duplex, I don't know that they're going to give you a building permit if you're not showing parking. So,
Could we, I know time, but could we continue all the items until the 5th so that it's all?
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's just do that.
Well, thank you for being agreeable.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay, a motion?
A motion to continue HPCA 230045 to the July 5th meeting.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, if you'll all please vote in PrimeGov. Has everyone been able to vote?
Mine's not up anywhere.
And you're back on the live meeting tab.
Huh?
Are you back on the live meeting tab?
What was your vote?
Yes.
Okay, the motion has
Thanks, guys.
passed, and we will see you next month. Thank you. Okay, moving on to HPCA 23-00052, 824 Northwest 38th Street in Crown Heights.
this is consideration and possible action on an application by Miles Mixon, Revive Design Build, for certificate of appropriateness to construct a replacement garage elective. The commission previously approved demolition of the existing garage as well as other items related to the house. The applicant has the garage that's proposed meets relevant guidelines for design, for building materials, for placement on the lot, but is larger than what the guidelines support as far as 450 square feet or 5% of the lot being kind of the established threshold. It's also larger than the existing garage that was approved for demolition. The applicant, since the last meeting, has provided additional documentation of surrounding garage sizes. Those range from 725 square feet to 418 square feet. The average size, by our calculation, was 594, just averaging all of them together. Based on kind of that average size, that size range, as well as the impact on lot coverage of going back with a larger garage, Staff recommended approval with the condition that the size be reduced to no more than 600 square feet. What was originally proposed was 640, and I do not remember off the top of my head how large the existing garage was, but it was more in the, I think, 400-something square foot
I
range.
wrote down 440. I don't know if that's right, but that's what I wrote. Okay, applicants here, you want to state your name and address for the record?
Miles Mixon, 515 Northwest 42nd Street.
Okay, well, this can probably be pretty simple since it sounds like staff, what I'm calculating is like coming out around 600 feet as an agreed upon condition in the staff report. Did you review that?
Yeah, I reviewed everything. Everything, you know, I agree with the staff report.
Okay, so you'll take
So,
these agreed upon
yeah.
conditions?
I move
Commissioners?
approval.
Oh, I was going to see if you guys had anything first. Any questions, concerns, comments from commissioners? Anybody from the public have a concern or a comment or a question? Okay. Do I have a motion to maybe move this down the road with agreed upon conditions?
I move approval of HPCA 23-00052, item number 5, with staff recommendations.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay, if you all will please vote in PrimeGov.
I vote yes.
Okay, congratulations on your medium-sized garage.
Thank you all.
All right, next up, let's see, where are we? Okay, HPCA 23-00056 at 424 Northwest 15th Street in Heritage Hills.
This is consideration and possible action on application by Addison Archer for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct porch with brick chimney on rear elevation elective, 2, install patio elective, and 3, replace kitchen door with sliding French doors elective. Staff has recommended approval of the installation of a pair of sliding doors, replacing an existing single door, and that it is not visible from the public right-of-way, meets relevant guidelines for materials. We've also recommended approval for the proposed patio. It is minimally visible from the street and located fully within the backyard. Our recommendation is a continuance on the proposed porch addition. It does meet relevant guidelines for, when reviewed as an addition, it meets relevant guidelines for size, for proportion to the, as far as being no taller, deeper, wider than the existing historic structure. It also maintains appropriate lot coverage, but did have concerns about the just proportions of it and compatibility with the historic structure. There are also some light fixtures proposed that are not typical of a historic light fixture, may not be appropriate to the style of the building. We do note that the proposed porch is similar in form to an existing older porch enclosure on the other side of the dwelling, has a similar form to that, and the location does serve to preserve some distinctive architectural features on the other side of the rear of the house that otherwise would be lost if it was moved to that location. It is an open, transparent structure rather than an enclosed space, such as a more typical addition, and that cuts down on the bulk and mass of the addition. So we recommend a continuance on that. There may be some justification in there for not a continuance if the commission is comfortable with what's proposed.
Okay, I'm sorry. Would the applicant please state her name and address for the record?
My name's Addison Archer. I live at 424 Northwest 15th Street.
Okay, commissioners, questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Well, I have a question for staff, really. I just wanted to get clarity on whether you had concerns over all of the lighting, or, well, it's really not all lighting, it's fixtures, but over all of it, some of it, you know, in looking at it, some of it feels more historically appropriate than others. So I just kind of wanted to get background on the thought process there.
Yeah, I think Angela can speak to that more than me, but yeah, not all of the lighting. I think just certain fixtures.
Mike's not on.
I turned it on. You're good.
The most recent lighting plan that you have has been adjusted. There's a reduction in the number of can lights from 8, I think, to 4. So overall, we've got a reduction in lighting.
Okay, so it wasn't the fan or the lanterns, it was the can lights. Okay, that's just what I wanted clarity on. We do, just so that everybody's aware, we do have a letter from the neighborhood in support of the staff recommendations. So staff is recommending approval here with unique circumstances and agreed upon conditions on items 2 and 3, and a continuance on item 1, which is the construction of the back porch addition.
I guess in terms of continuance, for the length of it, for the proportion, everything, one, I measured that northeast corner room from the front window to the back. That is what I based the length of this patio off of, so that it is proportionate. So I went in there with a ruler measuring, going, yep, this is what's on the house. So it fits with that. It is not doubling the depth. In terms of numbers, depth, what is existing is 33.84 feet. The covered patio would be 27.58 feet, including the stairs, an additional 5 feet. That would be 32.58 feet. So it is not doubling it, it is shy of doubling it. That northeast corner patio, that depth does not include that uncovered patio and those stairs. So that would be the additional space of that. In terms of the location that I picked it based off the guidelines, guideline 4.32. I read all the guidelines and tried to make this per the guidelines as best as I could. So as far as seeing that from the street, it's mostly because my neighbors have a bigger lot that you can see. And seeing it that way, it's only from really that front view you can't see, that's where you can see it. And that's by trees and by my neighbor's fence and through my fence, that is a wrought iron fence that you can see through. So in terms of the appropriate square footage, guideline 4.34, it fits those guidelines as well. So I can't find a guideline that this is too big and not proportional.
I don't think there's a guideline that states it's too big, and if there is one, I apologize. I think one concern is that just making sure we can tell, a clear difference between the original structure and this addition. So one recommendation was to inset that western edge. I'm looking here in your packet, and it's labeled as camera 2, where you're
So actually with that, if you look at that, I provided a picture with the arrows. So what differentiates this is if you look at the front of the house, the flat roofs have a brick detailing around them.
Right.
The roof here has an asphalt roof with the wood detailing. I'm suggesting to switch that. So make my flat roof have the wood detailing.
Okay. Are you opposed to bringing it in from the corner of the house by, I think what would be typical would be like around a foot to just show clearer differentiation?
Well, I think I've showed differentiation otherwise, so I don't think it's necessary. I actually called Katie Friddle's office and I talked to her about this on the phone, and she said, well, it's a patio, it's differentiated with that alone.
Katie?
I think I do remember that conversation. Yeah. And it is different than an addition where you're taking the wall of a house and just continuing it straight on out. So,
I agree that I would prefer to see it moved inward a little bit. In the future, if this were ever enclosed in any meaningful way, whether it be permanent, well, maybe not by you. This house is older than you are now, so somebody else will live in it eventually. Or even as a screen porch or whatever, you do end up with a really long line of sight on that side of the house. So again, just back to my question, is not whether you did or should, but are you willing to if that's one of the bigger concerns noted in the report?
I'm willing to.
Any additional thoughts on that from commission members? I just wanted to bring that up since it was in the staff report.
I could see the concern for, in the future, it being enclosed somehow and not having that differentiation, but,
I can see that concern, but,
yeah.
I mean, if it were to be enclosed, they have to come back here. At that point, we can say, well, it wasn't differentiated by the wall, so now there's a problem closing it in, so.
Yeah, it's hard to make conditions on, well, what if someone wants to do this in
Right.
40 years? or
Right, and
whatever.
I think the applicant has tried to make it different. Being an open patio makes it, obviously, it's not a wall. So I don't have a concern. I don't think you should have to bring it in if that's not what you wish to do, but that's my opinion.
Anybody else from the commission have questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
I'd be fine with moving this forward.
Anybody from the public? Nope. Anybody have a motion? I can't make one.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve item 3 with staff, or with specific findings, approve item 2 with unique circumstances, and approve item 1.
Would you state the case number as part of your
Oh,
motion,
yes,
please?
sorry.
Thanks.
For case number HPCA 2300056.
Second.
Okay, if you all will vote in prime gov.
Sorry to go back as you're already voting on the motion, but do we have any findings that you want to include for item 1? And there may be some relevant, even though it was recommended for continuance, that could be included, just so that we have something on record as to why it was approved.
Do we need it? Because I mean, the light fixtures aren't a problem anymore. No.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Okay.
So are we good with the current motion as it's written?
That's fine.
Okay, cool. Well, it's passed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Enjoy your patio.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to HPCA 23-00060 at 916 Northwest 40th Street in Crown Heights.
This is consideration and possible action on application by Henry Litchfield for Andrew and Stacy McGarry for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct an 8-foot wooden fence along the western elevation of the house, elective. This is a house that is abutting a church parking lot, and in particular church dumpsters in the parking lot. And they would like to construct an 8-foot tall fence to screen their property from that parking lot. We do actually have the ability to administratively approve an 8-foot fence when a residential property is abutting a non-residential use. But this fence is also proposed to come forward of the required setback for a non-transparent fence. It would have to set back 40% of the length of the side yard for us to be able to administratively approve it. So staff is certainly supportive of the 8-foot height, which typically on a side fence, it has to be 6 feet. We did think that it might be more appropriate if it's feasible to set the fence back behind the mature tree that you see at the corner of the house. It would allow for some of the kind of more open feel that we are seeking with those fence setback requirements, while still screening from the windows back to block those views into the parking lot and of the lovely dumpsters.
Okay, would the applicant please state your name and address for the record?
Henry Litchfield, 916 Northwest 40th.
Okay.
And I should state that I have not discussed that option with the applicant as far as setting the fence back a little ways from the front corner of the house. So I don't know if that's something that they would be amenable to, but that was just
You're
staff's
talking about-
suggestion.
It would stop before the tree or would be behind the tree?
It would be behind the tree.
And Katie, that would put it behind those front 2 windows, correct?
It would.
Yes.
So it would be,
like this.
okay, your house is on the south side of the street, so the fence would be, what I'm envisioning is south of the tree, north of the windows, if that's, but all the photos I have of that side are kind of at an angle, so I'm not.
Yeah, that tree is almost at the border of the house, and when I talked to a fencer, he wasn't sure if it was practical to go past the tree with putting where the foundation would be and dealing with the roots. So he thought we may have to stop before the tree anyway.
Okay.
But that's not a problem because, like I said, the tree is almost literally at where the structure ends.
So you're agreeable to starting it behind the tree, it sounds like? I mean, I
would prefer to go
understand,
further.
yeah.
I can't remember if he said that was practical or not. I don't want to go past the house.
In looking at this from this angle, I feel more on board with allowing a unique circumstance of starting a fence at the front of the house because I mean, nobody wants to look at that, and it's kind of like, what's the point in going to the trouble of the big, tall fence all along that side if half of the house still has to look at it? I certainly wouldn't be in favor of that in other cases, but I mean, it doesn't abut another house anyway, so it's kind of the end of that block and of any setback fencing or structural.
I agree.
Right. I mean, there's some houses.
Numerous times every day, because I live on 40th Street.
Okay.
And they need as much fence there as they can get.
Yeah, I think that would be a big improvement for that home.
And I think there's a house on 39th where the fence goes almost to the street, and I don't think that's, well, we'd like to preserve some landscaping as a barrier past the house, but the view from the master bedroom and the living room is not ideal as is.
Yeah, I would support an approval with the unique circumstance of it abutting a dumpster and a bunch of concrete. Yeah, I mean, if y'all are finished. Anybody else from the commission? Anybody from the public wish to speak to this?
So that would be up until the end where the structure ends?
I mean, it would be as proposed, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of approving your submission just the way you have submitted it to us.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion for HPCA 2300060 with the specific findings, conditions, and the unique circumstances listed in the staff report.
But not with the condition.
Or not with a condition.
Second.
Okay,
I
thank
get on
you.
a roll.
Okay, if everybody can vote. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
You are approved.
And so you'll send something?
Yes,
Is that right?
So you will get a certificate of appropriateness via email from us after the appeal period has expired, and then you can go forward with your project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to HPCA 23-00061 at 1443 Northwest 37th Street in Putnam Heights.
This is a consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture, for Sean Thompson for certificate of appropriateness to, 1, replace storm windows and doors with aluminum clad wood windows and doors elective. This is a side porch that appears to have been enclosed for a very, very long time and currently has non-historic storm windows that are enclosing it and that do not appear to be in great shape. They have applied to replace that with aluminum clad wood windows and a door. And we have recommended approval. Our only condition was to get a little more documentation on some of the installation details, mullions, any kind of framing or window surrounds. We do have window specifications from the window manufacturer that show lots of bits and pieces and parts of windows, but not like a straight-on drawing of what the installation would look like. And, you know, we're not replicating a historic window configuration here, but we just wanted clarity on that, on what the finished product would be, and as well as confirmation that all of the materials meet the guidelines, because these window documents do reference some materials like PVC and Smart Side that we typically wouldn't approve. So just to make sure that we're using stuff that meets the guidelines.
Okay.
You can administratively approve that. Wouldn't that normally be just administrative approval requiring that they get that to you first?
We can't administratively approve window replacement,
Ever.
ever.
Oh, I thought you said
So,
you could.
yeah.
Could the applicant please state her name and address for the record?
Holly Hunt, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. I thought the staff report was excellent. Like, it really lays out exactly what we're trying to do. The homeowners just want to come back with a more superior product, that being the wood windows with aluminum cladding. Again, this has been enclosed the whole 40 years they've owned it, but certainly has been enclosed over 100 years, which was shocking to me. I was glad to read that in the staff report. So yeah, basically I just got the window specs and realized that there are going to be some areas where we just have to do a slight infill, namely just there at the corner where it abuts the column. Certainly I'm going to provide an elevation drawing. We'll use wood trim, no PVC, no smart trim, but I'm happy to provide that to staff. And, you know, we're just really thrilled about the recommendation for approval, and it'll keep this enclosed porch good for another 100 years.
Commissioners, any follow-up, or is everybody good with an approval with agreed upon conditions? Anybody from the public wish to speak to this? A motion?
I move approval of HPCA 23-00061, item number 1.
With the agreed upon conditions?
Yep.
So moved.
Does
Second
he
it.
need to, hang on, does he need to state that it's with agreed upon conditions?
Sorry, I did.
Second. Yeah.
So we're good?
We're all set.
Okay, if you all would please vote.
Sorry, I guess I mumbled.
Was everyone able to vote?
Yes, mine's not up again.
Okay, you are approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Just get with staff and submit those materials, and see you next time. All right, so I think that concludes our cases for individual consideration and takes us on to Board of Adjustment. Let's see where we're at in this. Okay. So yes, moving on to other business, we've got BOA 15386 at 305 Northwest 25th Street in Jefferson Park.
This is consideration and possible action on application by Alyssa Dyer, Table Property Management, for Adam Dietrich for, it's for a recommendation to Board of Adjustment, not a certificate of appropriateness, to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment regarding an application for a special exception to allow for home sharing. So we've been seeing lots of these. This is one of the ones that is in an HL overlay district. So the rules that we have in HP neighborhoods about having to it having to be the homeowner's primary residence and them having to be on site do not apply in our HL overlay neighborhoods. This applicant appears to meet all applicable criteria. They're not proposing any additional work to the property, and we have recommended approval. We've recommended a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, is the applicant present? Nope, okay. Commissioners, any questions, comments, concerns? Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? Perhaps a recommendation for, why am I blanking on what we are supposed to do with the BOA? Just to it, yes, there we go.
I move recommendation for approval to the Board of Adjustment for 15386.
Second.
Okay, should all be able to vote now? Okay, it is passed. Okay, now we have, let's see. So sorry, I lost my place here. BOA 15387 at 324 Northwest 26th Street in Jefferson Park.
This is another consideration and possible action on an application by Gina Buendia Verana LLC to provide a recommendation to Board of Adjustment regarding an application for a special exception to allow for home sharing. Now, this is another one that is in an HL district, so again, those provisions about the owner being on site at the time of rental don't apply, being owner occupied or the primary residence of the host do not apply. However, this property does appear to have had a significant amount of work done without a certificate of appropriateness, and is currently the subject of a code enforcement case. Rules regulating home sharing stipulate that home sharing should not adversely impact historic fabric, and work being done without a certificate of appropriateness is potentially having an adverse effect on the historic fabric. So we have provided a recommendation of conditional approval to Board of Adjustment, that the home share be approved contingent upon receipt of a certificate of appropriateness. You all could also recommend outright denial. We felt like it was possibly a good strategy to get on the record with both the Commission and the Board of Adjustment that a certificate of appropriateness was necessary, but that's up for the Commission's discussion.
Okay, is the applicant present? No? Okay. Commissioners?
If we provide that recommendation of conditional approval, will the Board of Adjustment take that into consideration?
So this will be, your recommendation will be forwarded to the board, and I would attend the Board of Adjustment hearing. I don't always attend, but when we have something like this, it's not just a easy one. I attend so that I can answer any questions they may have. Now, they may just approve it outright and say that's for code enforcement to handle. They may approve it with some sort of condition, or they may continue it and say, come back to us for your special exception once you have your CA. We haven't done this before.
Can we continue it until they come back and have their CA?
You know, we typically don't continue something upon which we're just making a recommendation. I would defer to Rita on whether we really have the ability to do that.
Well, what they want to know is what you think about them being allowed to do home share. So that opinion really kind of stands alone and apart from the rest of it. They'll want to know about that. They always are interested in that other part. So the item will be up for consideration as the Board of Adjustment agenda indicates, and then Katie will say this other part, and then they'll get to decide if they think that home sharing is appropriate given these circumstances.
I did ask about, when I read the recommendation with conditions, about why we wouldn't just deny it. And I think the thought process is like to, first of all, get it on the record, but also, if it is denied by us, it's not really changing anything with what they're doing right now. There's no further action step for us. So if it goes to BOA, Katie has a chance to stand up and say, this is why we want you to get conditional approval, and with coming back to get a CA for the at least 4 infractions I circled on my little packet.
Yeah.
We did have one recently that was in another district that had, I would say, much more significant infractions. They were doing work without any building permits. They were building an actual accessory building. They had had stop work orders issued and power shut off, all that sort of thing, and we just recommended denial. That home share application ended up getting withdrawn before it even went to Board of Adjustment, and that's a whole nother code enforcement
Yet the home is
concern
still
right
being
now,
shared.
and neighborhood concern right now. But this one is not as kind of outrageous as that other property. I think we can certainly work with these property owners and hopefully get them into compliance and also get them on their way with the home share.
It just seems backwards to me if they don't have a CA to begin with, that they can be allowed to proceed onto additional steps in front of the BOA without even that initial, those initial approvals.
They're different bodies, of course, and they're different things. So they're almost mutually exclusive in the sense that the Board of Adjustment doesn't have jurisdiction over this, and you all don't have jurisdiction over what the Board of Adjustment does, but they do want your input, and it is something that is considered. So you have an opportunity, if you choose to make a statement to them, not only by the action you take today, but by what Katie says to them in person.
You might think of it too as when someone goes to Board of Adjustment and gets a variance. They might go to Board of, like the case we just saw, someone might go to Board of Adjustment to get a variance to how many parking spaces they're required to have, and then come back to us and get a CA for, what the variance allows. Similarly, this would be, you know, a special exception that, yes, you can do home sharing, but first you need to go get a CA for all the outstanding violations. But I hear what you're saying.
For clarity, if we recommended denial, then our comments would not move forward, and you would not get an opportunity to state those.
Now, you could still recommend denial with whatever other comments or findings you wanted to include on the denial recommendation, and we would still take that forward to Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
It's a part of the report as well as Katie's spoken word. So the board hears all of it and makes their decision based on everything.
Are there any members of the public who'd like to contribute to the discussion? Come on up.
While she's walking up, I kind of lean towards the recommendation of denial because of these reasons.
Yeah, that was my first inclination
Yeah.
too. Okay, would you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Mary Granger, and I live at 328 Northwest 26th Street, which is the house that you see on the right there.
Okay. What would you like to tell us about this application?
It has to do with the home sharing part of it.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want me to talk to it about it here or go to the Board of Adjustment meeting.
I think it's part of our recommendation. We love to hear neighbors, you know, thoughts and concerns when they're abutting a home share, so that's part of the process.
Last year, when they applied for this exception, I wrote a letter to the Board of Adjustment, and I wrote another one this year. Do you mind if I just read them to you? So
No,
I can-
that's absolutely
okay.
fine.
My husband, John Granger, and I have lived at 328 Northwest 26th Street since September 2011. And I write today to present our concerns about, this is the first email last year, the Airbnb Ms. Gina Buendia has established. Jefferson Park is a quiet neighborhood of small bungalows, still affordable for younger families and older couples. It is racially diverse, predominantly middle class, and a community of neighbors who respect each other's property and privacy. The Airbnb property in question upsets the peace and stability of the neighborhood. Gina Buendia has added amenities, most notably a hot tub, fire pit, and patio area in the backyard that encourage year-round parties. A family living in this house as their permanent residents might have gatherings several times a year, but with new guests arriving sometimes several times a week, there will inevitably be noise late at night and at all hours of the day, far more frequently as we have already experienced. Within the first weeks of 324 being rented out to guests, there were 2 incidents of party noise after 10 p.m., one of them being between the hours of 2 and 5 a.m., in addition to afternoon gatherings on the back patio with its fire pit. When we complained to Ms. Buendia, she assured us that she would be firm about her rules to keep it down after 10 p.m. During the same conversation, she also assured us that she had applied for a special exception for operating an Airbnb in this neighborhood, a claim we discovered was not true. She had not made an application. When she first bought the property, she led us to believe that she would be using the house for her family and friends and only agreed to speak with me following my complaint about noise in the wee hours of the morning. Although the Airbnb posting for 324 has been taken down during the process of Ms. Buendia's application for special exemption, there continues to be a steady stream of guests arriving and departing. It is very much like having a small hotel installed next door by an out-of-town investor who has no interest in this neighborhood outside of turning a profit. And then this is the email I've just submitted to the board. The decision last year did not address our concerns, and the Lola House continues to be an unwelcome addition to our quiet family neighborhood. The Board of Adjustment, after the hearing last year, voted to approve the application, stating that the Lola House is good for Oklahoma City because it puts the city in a good light and will encourage people to come here. None of the concerns of the residents of the neighborhood were addressed. I don't speak only for myself. The other neighbors on the other side have voiced the same concerns. I maintain, as I did last year, that the Lola House is an intrusion in this neighborhood. As beautiful a property as the Lola House might be, it does not belong in this quiet bungalow neighborhood. We do not have neighbors at 324 Northwest 26th. Guests at the Lola House almost never greet us and have been rude to us on occasion when we've asked them to take their outdoor party indoors late at night or in the wee hours of the morning. Gina has told me that she only accepts people with the highest Airbnb rating. Still, we have had multiple incidents that have kept us awake at night. Following is a list of those incidents. In August 27th, 4 cars in the driveway, a loud party in the back. After at midnight, I texted Gina and she responded, the family said they will go inside. November 8th, there was a monster truck parked overnight on the street in front of the trash bins on trash day, blocking garbage trucks from getting through to the street. I texted Gina 3 times between 9 and 10 a.m., no response. That night, they had a party outdoors after midnight. December 10th, partying outside after 10, people going between Lola House and the house across the street. It was very weird. There were people kind of walking back and forth. And at 10:30, our elderly neighbor was walking her dog past the house and was startled by a man in a bizarre dress and oversized glasses standing on the porch. January 21st, the guests arrived at 2 a.m. The driveway is right next to our bedroom, so I hear everything. Then they took their party outside at 4 a.m. We asked them to take the party inside, and they responded through the gate, which we had knocked on, to ask them to be quiet. They just yelled out, "We're praying to our Lord and Savior." February 5th, there was a party from 2:30 until 5 a.m. Outside, drums, truck parked on the street, and I've texted Gina. There was no response.
I'm going to jump in just because of our 3-minute rule, but I mean, you certainly have a long list of valid concerns.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We just want to make sure.
I want to give you an idea of what, okay. This does not include all of the comings and goings of.
So just lots of noise, lots of
There's
disruption,
lots of noise, a lot
failure
of
to
cars.
act from the owner.
They're out of state, they're coming and going. We've got lots of landscaping going on, big, blowers that, disturb it. So the neighbors on either side of 324 agree that we would much prefer the Lola House to be a long-term rental, if it does, but to have to be something, rather than what we have come to call the party house.
So question maybe for staff, when you referenced their application last year, so because I wrote down, I'm pretty sure we heard this last May, or we heard an application on behalf of the same homeowners. So can you clarify that for me, what we're hearing
So
it
this
again?
did come to HP a year ago for a recommendation, and then we recommended approval, and it went on to Board of Adjustment, and it got approved. There were concerns voiced by the neighbors at Board of Adjustment. I don't remember that anyone came to HP, and at that time, nothing had been raised, and I don't think any notice of violation had been issued for work done to the house.
I remember discussing it.
Yeah, I think at the meeting, I think very late in the game, we kind of realized, because we don't go out and document these properties the same way we do a house where we're typically getting an application and we're looking at physical features. But it did come to our attention that some work had gone on, and then from between then and now, they've gotten a notice of violation.
So they're back because they've received a notice of violation and they now need another recommendation for approval?
No, they are back because they were only granted a special exception for 1 year. So their special exception for the home share has expired, and they have to come back and get a new one.
Are the home shares usually just 1 year?
It depends. Sometimes they do it for 2 years. I don't think they usually do much more than
They
2.
don't. They can do it for up to 10 years. But this group for the last year or so has been granting them for 1 year for those who have not previously had a home share.
Group is in the Board of Adjustment.
Yes.
Well, I think after hearing all of the concerns and realizing that this was, I do think we had neighbors present at that meeting last May, and I do think that they brought some concerns to the table. I remember it pretty well, mostly because I saw the applicants at a party that evening and felt really embarrassed. But so it sticks out in my mind, and I remember. honestly support a denial because I just don't think this is a proper use of an HP structure, and I don't think it's a proper use of an Airbnb. I understand, you know, the desire to be loud and be outside and all of the things, but you know,
So, I'll
ultimately
make a
it goes to
motion.
neighborhoods. Well,
make a motion.
everything we say is on the record for Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
So if we want, I mean, correct.
It's on the record, but I understand you're making a recommendation.
Right.
So I will make a motion to deny recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for BOA 15387 on the condition of failure to receive the certificate of appropriateness for work completed with applicable guidelines and regulations in accordance with those guidelines and regulations, and as a result, causing adverse effects on the character of the specific property in the historic district.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's passed. Okay, so moving on. Kind of forgot I was in charge of this show there for a second.
Sarah, I did want to say, I do appreciate the Board of Adjustment to limiting that to like 1 year, or having
Like a trial
practice of
period.
limiting it. And if you could convey that to them, tell them that I do appreciate it. I understand the home share thing, but I am have a lot of concerns about it, especially when the neighbors have problems with it. So I like that it has to be reviewed every year.
It doesn't have to be.
I know, but I would.
We would like it if it did have to be.
I wouldn't be
Yeah.
opposed to it if it did, but I appreciate it sort of being a pattern of doing that.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah. Okay, Katie, any other business?
So no other action items. We do have a list of administrative approvals, and in the interest of time, I just say if you have questions about any of those, feel free to reach out to staff. And these for our new member, I think we talked about this when you came in and met with us the other day, but we don't take any action on these. They've already been approved, but they are here for you to just be aware of what's going on in the districts, and you can certainly let us know if you ever have questions or concerns. We did have a withdrawal and an administrative closure. Nothing else to report from Council, Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission, Municipal Councilor, nothing?
Okay, next meeting date, July 5th at 3:30.
Yes.
Okay. Any items from commissioners?
Thank you for being prompt for this meeting so we can be out by 4.
Citizens to be heard.
Good job.
Okay.
I will, real quick, before we adjourn, we do have, we have a workshop scheduled for this Wednesday, June 14th. I have been emailing with the National Register Coordinator at the State Historic Preservation Office. There's a training that they're trying to do for all of our CLG communities. So if it works for him, he may come and do that training at that workshop, because that would be better than trying to come do it here in council. It's only about an hour, so we would still have some more time, and I thought we could go back to our discussion on garages. We have a presentation from a previous workshop, kind of bringing everybody up to speed on the evolution of garage guidelines, as we've been talking about making those guideline revisions. And then item about commissioners, not from commissioners, you may have noticed we were missing some people. Joe Meacham did resign, I think after the meeting before last. She's been on for a very long time and has served HP in a number of ways for many, many years. So she was ready to move on to other things. We may see her some more as an applicant in the future. And then Amber Corbin's term ended, and Gary has filled her spot. So that's why she's no longer with us today.
Okay, and can you just clarify what time that workshop is, Katie?
It is 11:30
Oh, sorry, is it?
a.m. And
Oh.
this always says p.m. I don't know. It's like PrimeGov has decided it's at 11:30 at night, and it will not. We correct it over and over again, and it just, something in the template that's funky. But it's 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And it does say 420 West Main, Suite 900. We would do it in the Embark conference room.
Okay.
The Embark Conference Room?
The conference room, it's next to Clarity Coffee in the Embark parking garage, yeah.
Can you guys send a meeting invite for that?
Yes, I'll do that.
So this is the public workshop?
Yep.
Got it. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we are officially